This Bavarian princess life was no fairy tale. Ladies, sometimes the worst thing you can do is get yourself a man that slows you down. Have you ever heard about Elizabeth, the Austria Emperor's 16-year-old bride? She was a hesitant empress who struggled with royal life while supporting the democratic appreciation of her new country's citizens. Elizabeth's carefree life came to an end when she married an emperor as a teenager and then spent the rest of her life attempting to get free of her gilded cage. But how did her older sister's suitor end up marrying her? In this video, we look at the life of Empress Elisabeth, the infamous beauty queen who had a fear of getting old. She wasn't your typical princess. One of the most well-known royal women in Europe history was Empress Elisabeth, also known as Elizabeth of Bavaria, who was born December 24th, 1837. Her life reads like a love story gone wrong. Here it is. The Austrian emperor is captivated by a vibrant Bavarian princess. They get married and move back to his palace in Vienna, where she has to deal with her controlling mother-in-law, in addition to oppression and rigid court rules. Trust me when I say that even though it sounds like fiction, Elizabeth experienced all this and more in real life. She had disagreements with Archduchess Sophie, her aunt, and her mother-in-law as she struggled to fit into court life. The young empress became even more alone as a result of her husband's civic obligation, which kept the couple apart. To pass the time, she busied herself with hobbies like traveling, reading, and writing poems. Blessed with a brilliant mind, a lot of her time was spent researching the custom of her people, particularly those of Hungary. She was a diplomat who managed the union of Austria and Hungary and was renowned for her stunning beauty. Oh, and did you know she held the position of Empress of Austria for the longest time in recorded history? But let's start from her childhood. She was the fourth child born to Princess Ludwika of Bavaria and Duke Maximilian Joseph. Elizabeth's opinion and upbringing were greatly affected by Duke Maximilian, who was a touch quirky and unquestionable more progressive in his values than his fellow European nobles. Instead of taking official lessons, she and her siblings spent the most of their time riding in the Bavarian countryside. Elizabeth, who was affectionately referred to as Sisi by her family and closest friends, grew to prefer a more private life away from the bounds of society. Now, for the match made in heaven. She was especially close to her older sister Helen, and accompanying her along with their mother to Austria in 1853 in search of Helen's ideal match. Emperor Franz Joseph's mother Sophie, the sister of Ludwika, had attempted unsuccessfully to find her son a bride among the prominent European royalty, so she turned to her own family. In her heart, Ludwika secretly hoped that the journey will bring about the second union of Franz Joseph's younger brother, Count Ludwig, and Elizabeth, but fate had other plans. Originally, Helen, the older sister of Sisi, was to marry Franz Joseph, but the younger Bavarian princess captured the emperor's attention when the two families spent a weekend together. The first two episodes of The Empress, a royal drama based on the life of Austria Empress Sisi that launched on Netflix, are devoted to her courtship with Franz Joseph I. It actually makes a captivating and exciting episode. Are you wondering how much of it is based in reality? It turns out quite a bit. To preserve the continuity of the Habsburg dynasty, the two mothers made the decision to marry their offsprings. Helen, who was 18 at the time, was poised and submissive by nature, she was seen to be the best candidate for a royal wife and to meet the strict requirements of the Habsburg courts. But Franz was only interested in little Elizabeth from the moment he saw her. Seeing his interest, the mother decided to get him married to Sisi instead of Helen. That didn't go too well either. Helen was distraught, while Sisi was shocked and a little embarrassed by the entire incident. Helen actually slipped into depression after the snub, and the sisters' close relationship was ruined. The family worked frantically to make Sisi prepare for life in the strict Habsburg dynasty. They dressed her in new clothes and gave her lessons in history and foreign languages. But nothing could have prepared her for the demanding, rigid, and solidarity life that lays ahead. She sobbed in her glass coach as people lined the street on her wedding day, overwhelmed by her future. The mother-in-law from hell. Archduchess Sophie is one of history's most intimidating mother-in-laws, if not the most. She made sure that the majority of Elizabeth's staff was made up of middle-aged women handpicked by her. She didn't know any of them and couldn't trust any of them because they just tell Sophie everything she said and did, leaving her feeling trapped and isolated. The birth of Sisi's daughters, Sophie, her first child, was maybe the first most painful event for her. In her own room, she was separated from Sisi. The Archduchess established this nursery and hired her own staff to look after the infant. The Empress, who just given birth and was soon expecting another, fought to even hold her own child. Not only did Sophie insist on raising the child herself, she also named the firstborn after herself without consulting the mother. Sisi had her little influence over her children because her controlling mother-in-law took them away from her and raised them. Archduchess Gisela of Austria, her second child, was also a daughter. So you can imagine the kind of backlash she had to face for not birthing a son. Eventually, Sisi gave birth to Archduke and Crown Prince Rudolf, heir to the throne, much to the relief of the Habsburg family. The idea of a happily ever after were far from the truth. Sisi's relationship with Emperor Franz Joseph did nothing to ease the Empress' suffering. The young couple hardly had time to enjoy the relationship. Franz Joseph claimed to be much in love with his new wife, but he had little free time because of his imperial duties. Any fairy tales ideas Sisi may have had immediately vanished, just as Franz Joseph felt intimidated by having to return to the harsh reality of power. Sisi experienced a great deal of emotional turmoil at the hands of her domineering mother-in-law, her uninterested husband, and the unexpected death of her daughter Sophie. Sadly, the Empress would experience more sorrows later in life when Rudolf, her only son, committed a murder-suicide in 1889. She was into skincare routine before influencers made it cool. If you look at the most recent TikTok trends, olive oil bath, eggs and cognac hair washes might seem like the most bizarre beauty trend, but in 1880, Austria beauty queen Empress Elisabeth of Austria and Queen of the Hungary liked and even became obsessed with such treatment. Elizabeth will make her own cosmetic compound and solution in an effort to maintain her radiant complexion and youthful skin. Get this. The Empress was infamously scared of aging. Aren't we all, Sisi? Aren't we all? Her personal favorite concoction was called creme celeste, which was made of white wax almond oil, and rose water. She seems to believe that the mixture might help her maintain her natural beauty forever. Also, Elizabeth was particularly fond of her hair, which was chestnut in color and so long that it reached her ankles. Every day she devoted 3 hours to caring for it. But that's not all. She actually cleared out her schedule for her hair care days, maintaining her hair. We're sadly not guilty about taking spa days every now and then. She wasn't some bimbo obsessed with her looks. She took the opportunity to enhance her skills by learning languages like English, French, and Greek, which also gave her a much-needed getaway from public appearances. As she got older, the need to look after herself turned more into an obsession, where she got more and more desperate to keep up her appearance of youth. In a desperate effort to keep young, she developed her own beauty remedies throughout the years, like sleeping with raw meat on her face or wrapped wet towels around her metal bed frames, among other crazy things. In fact, she was so afraid of aging that in her 30s, she stopped herself from getting photographed or posed for a portrait. Would you believe that Sisi was also a gym freak? I'm sure you have friends who'd made fitness their entire personality. They eat, drink, sleep at the gym, and will tell anyone that listens about the greatest protein shake they've been having. Well, Sisi is said to be quite the fitness freak herself. She followed a strict diet and training regimens her entire life to maintain her trim physique, to the point that Sisi converted a room in her home into a gym, complete with weights and equipment like balance beam and pommel horses and rings. She also excelled in sports like horseback riding, where she was regarded as one of Europe's best female riders. She suffered from an eating disorder and severe depression, or melancholy, as it was called in the 19th century. The young queen was characterized as being graceful but too slim and very unhappy, and she suffered under her own pressure to retain her beauty. Her love for Hungary. Unsurprisingly, Elizabeth began running away to Hungary during her most depressing moments to get over her sorrow and terrible marriage. This, along with reading, provides some solace for the queen along throughout her life. Sisi fell in love with the country after her first trip to Hungary with her husband because of how independent it was. She had a close connection to the people and they loved her just as much. While she didn't engage in much political activity, she was crucial to the discussion that led to the dual monarchy of 1867 and ensured that Hungary gets equal rights, called the Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867, ending Austria's absolute authority, was made possible to a large part thanks to her fervent mediation efforts. Soon enough, Franz Joseph and Elizabeth were proclaimed King and Queen of Hungary, cementing the dual monarchy. But should rather you remember her brilliant mind. Historically, description of Elizabeth's intelligence have received a little less attention, but like those of many other women who came before her and after her, the Empress developed a passion for the German lyric poet and radical politic theorist Heinrich Heine, whose letter she kept and who encouraged her to create poetry. She had trouble falling asleep at night, and in the day she devoured books on literature, history, and philosophy, and even wrote her own poems. Towards the end of her life, she started traveling the world to distract herself from court life. Elizabeth's unhappy existence came to an equally tragic end when she was murdered in 1898 with a needle file. She was attacked by Italian anarchist Lingue Lucini as she and a lady-in-waiting were walking to board a boat. Lucini had nothing against her. He just wanted to assassinate a royal, any royal he could get his hands on. When Elizabeth collapsed shortly after boarding, it was revealed that Lucini had stabbed her in the chest with a tiny blade. At first, the wound was not immediately apparent, but she passed away very soon from all the blood loss. She was laid to rest in the Capuchin church after having her body brought back to Vienna for a state funeral. What happened to Lucini? Well, after being captured, prosecuted, and being found guilty, her killer committed suicide in 1910 in prison. There are numerous ways that Elizabeth's legacy or legend, depending on who you ask, lives on. In her honor, Franz Joseph established the Order of Elizabeth, and numerous structures and monuments in Austria and Hungary bear her name till today. And that's a wrap for today's video. Do you think that Netflix series does justice to Sisi's incredible life story? If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I'll see you soon with another one.